Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're having a look at Volta. Volta Charging. Volta is an electric vehicle charging station company. They've got a wide range of network charging. Now earlier this year, it was announced that Volta raised 125 million in a new funding round process managed by Goldman Sachs. This was earlier this year, back in January. Volta has actually gone public, and this was a huge deal for Volta because they've been building up to this merger and to this SPAC and to their public listing for quite a while. Now Volta as a company builds and operates a network of electric vehicle charging stations that are sited in parking lots around grocery stores, pharmacy chains, banks and hospitals. Now the company has placed its charging station with their 55-inch digital display in locations at 200 cities across 23 states, and these are in the United States. But here's something that's extremely unique about Volta, something that's extremely unique to Volta themselves, something that other manufacturers are not doing as we speak. Volta charging is free for vehicle owners, and it's supported by the retailers and consumer good companies that want to reach the EV audience. Now, leading up to the beginning of this year, Volta actually raised a total of 200 million in funding and intends to use its cash to begin expanding internationally, which I think is absolutely brilliant. I would love to see Volta charging go to places like Norway. Norway has a huge electric vehicle market, places like France, the UK. I think the closest country that Volta will start building in, apart from the United States, is Canada. For one, they are neighbors. I do believe that Canada is a great place for Volta to expand to. Cost-wise, it will be the smartest move the company can make at the current time. Now, companies who've placed Volta chargers on their sites include Alderson. Now, Volta is also an advertising brand. They advertise. Volta uses their EV charging stations to advertise. This is one of the main ways that they fund their free charging services. Now, brands advertising on the company's screen includes GM, Hulu, Nestle, Polestar, Porsche, and Unilever. The idea that electric car owners can charge their vehicles anywhere, but also free, and in return, there are advertisements that are displayed on the Volta machines. This was ingenious. Volta has said themselves that they want to engage millions of shoppers at retail and essential businesses locations, seconds before they select a brand. For Volta, this makes sense in a lot of ways because they want to move away from the typical and normal way of advertising. They want their advertisements to be more interactive. Now for Volta, there is estimated to be 450 million monthly audited impressions. These are based on their advertisements. 70 million plus customers are reached, and a 44% increased purchase intents. Now you might be wondering, how did they get these figures? Usually it's because companies perform surveys and they'll ask their customers, how did you find out about our business? And the customer will simply say, well, I found it on Google or Facebook, or the customer might say, actually, I saw it on the Volta charging station advertisements. And that's how they get these figures. Now what Volta is doing, they're actually engaging with brands. Volta is explaining to brands that if customers can charge their vehicles directly outside your store, they'll have a lot more time to actually spend inside your store rather than looking for an EV charger that could be miles away. But more importantly, these charging stations are actually free. This benefits these retailers a whole lot more. Now in Volta's mind, they want custom charging solutions for every businesses and for property goals. They have 3 different charging systems. They've got the L2, which is their main advertisement platform. They've got the DC fast chargers, and they've obviously got the towers. These are more simplistic charging stations made to fit almost anywhere. In my opinion, because charging EV vehicles are so valuable, I do believe that eventually at some point, Volta will have to start charging people because its charging stations will become more busier. Your brand, your product will become more valuable. You will have to put a price on your charging stations. Now this doesn't guarantee that this is exactly what Volta will do, but in my opinion, I think it's quite obvious that free fast charging is not a long-term solution for your company. Eventually, you're going to realize that by charging people, you can actually make a lot more money, but it actually makes more sense because the demand is going to be extremely high. Now, Volta was actually founded by Scott Mercer and Chris Wendell. Now, Scott is an entrepreneur with a passion for bringing future-focused technology to market faster. Now, prior to Volta, Scott ran a vintage automotive restoration business and sold a restored 1967 Jaguar XKE to seed the beginning of Volta. Scott currently drives a Bramo motorcycle, an electric Fiat, and occasionally a 1971 Alfa Romeo. Now, like I said, the company recently went public through a SPAC. That was a SPAC merger. Now, the price per share currently sits at $8.95. Before we go any further into the shares, I must declare that this video is not financial advice. It's strictly for entertainment purposes and for educational purposes. Now, currently sits at $8.95. There is a rumored share outstanding at 174 million shares in outstanding. We have no information on the public float, but this is a rumored amount. It's an estimate. Sadly, I wasn't able to find any information on the exact amount of shares that are outstanding or the exact amount of shares that are in public float. But this does give us an idea that the share supply seems to be quite low. This gives us an idea that the share supply are actually not extremely high, which is good. This means that the price of the share has huge potential in the short term. Long term, it has huge potentials as well. But if Volta had a huge share supply, such as 1 billion, 2 billion, the price is going to take a long time to 10x. But based on this rumored amount of outstanding shares, I'd say the share price is actually relatively quite low. Not too low, but obviously not too high, which is good. On the other hand, I've got 3 EV charging stocks for your July 2021 watch list. This includes Blink Charging, ChargePoint Holding, and Tortoise Acquisition Second Corporation. Now, what is Tortoise Acquisition? Tortoise is what we know now as Volta. To simply put, Tortoise and Volta actually had a merger, and considering that Tortoise Acquisition was already a publicly listed company, all they had to do was merge the two companies and change the name of Tortoise. In doing so, they created a SPAC merger, which resulted in Tortoise Acquisition becoming Volta. Now, there are other EV charging companies as well that are great choices, such as Blink Charging, ChargePoint, and even EVgo. Sadly, EVgo wasn't listed on this list, but I'm going to add EVgo to this. But EVgo is still a really underrated competitor in the EV charging space. Now, recently, Volta announced new charging station installation. They already have an abundance amount of charging station in Washington. That seems to be one of their biggest markets. So expanding this is actually no surprise to me, but I really want to see what will happen when Volta decides to expand to Canada. And I think before they think about coming to Europe with their charging stations, I think they should focus on Canada market first, because Canada should be their secondary market, because after all, Volta is an American company and Canada is a neighbor. Therefore, it will only make sense if Volta expands to Canada before it thinks about international countries. They obviously celebrated because this was a huge deal for Volta. This was a huge deal for the EV market. This is one more competitor in the EV space. But Volta has actually been around for a very long time. They've been around since 2015, 2014. They've been around for a good time. But obviously, over time, they've gained more attention. They've gained more investments because people and investors are starting to realize that there is a serious potential. In EV charging companies. Most EV charging companies, as we speak, they are simply sleeping giants. The EV market is being filled up with more and more EV cars, and we're going to need companies like Volta to supply us with fast charging stations. Today we mark a milestone. For the first time, Volta Charging traded on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticket symbol VLTA. It's been 10 years since Volta embarked on its mission to deliver accessible, reliable EV charging. Now, with more than 100 million electric miles later, we've advanced outcomes we set out to achieve and proven that our approach and partnerships will play an increasingly large role in the defining that electric future. Now, as we roll up our sleeves for the work to come, I can't help but also feel Immensely grateful for my team and our partners and our EV drivers and believers that have given us a running start. To those loyal EV drivers who've already woven Volta Station into their daily lives, thank you. To us, creating a value for everyone involved. And this was a statement said by Scott, the CEO. So this is huge for Volta, and it's huge for the entire electric charging market. Is this the first time you've heard of Volta? And what other EV charging companies do you think are really promising? And do you think Volta can compete with the likes of ChargePoint, Blink Charging, EVgo, Electrified America, and Tesla? I think what I like about Volta the most is that they're carving out their own market in the EV charging space. They found something that they're good at: advertising, partnering with brands, shopping malls. Volta would like to put a charging station in every advertisement. Volta is a type of company that I believe that can put charging station almost anywhere. They're not just limited to charging stations, but these charging pods, they can be on your street, outside your house, charging any electric vehicle that pulls up. They can be anywhere, which is very useful. They can be in any parking lot and any permitted parking areas, which is really good because we need to find more and useful and effective ways to charge electric vehicles. This is the smart thing to do because EV vehicles will take a long time to charge. Superchargers and charging stations, while we go shopping, while we go to sleep, while we go to walk, while we go to work, and we leave our vehicles sleeping or idling. So to be honest, if Volta charging keeps on expanding to Canada and eventually to Europe, it's going to be a serious competitor in the EV charging space. But most importantly, it's one of those shares that can definitely 10x, 20x, even 30x in the next 2 to 3 years, and possibly 3 to 5 years. So thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Let me know, did I miss anything from Volta Charging? And is there any other companies that you would like me to cover? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.